everyone, and welcome to episode number 7 of the Prostate Cancer Patient Empowerment Program, PC-PEP podcast. I'm Dr. Gabriela Ilie. I'm an endowed scientist in prostate cancer quality of life research and associate professor in the Faculty of Medicine at Dalhousie University. And I'm so delighted to be doing this series of podcasts with some incredible human beings that are willing to share from the heart so we can all learn. When Kimball was diagnosed with prostate cancer, he was a fit, retired engineer living in rural Nova Scotia, running marathons, cycling long distances, and spending a great deal of time, especially weekends, immersed in nature. What followed was an unexpected life-altering journey. Kimball got prostate cancer. He went through robotic surgery, recurrence, radiation treatment, and also a quiet emotional isolation that he didn't anticipate. In this deeply human and heartfelt episode, Kimball reflects on how the PC-PEP program helped him not just physically recover, but grow emotionally and spiritually, and he has a wicked sense of humor, as you will see. He shares how, with the support of his partner, Darlene, he built daily rituals of healing, starting the day with PC-PEP videos, doing the exercises together, preparing plant-based meals, and slowly rediscovering what truly matters. As Kimball opened up to the support around him, he began to change. His wife, Darlene, quietly told him one day, "You've evolved." A simple sentence that for Kimball remains the greatest compliment he's ever received. No longer focused solely on problem solving, he began learning to simply listen to others, to himself, and to the silence between moments. He recounts a moment of profound humility during radiation treatment when a terminally ill woman on a stretcher reached out to him to comfort him on his first day. Her words, "It'll be okay," have stayed with him ever since, a reminder of the quiet power of connection and human resilience, even in the worst of times. Kimball also speaks to the importance of programs like PC-PEP, especially for men navigating prostate cancer in rural or remote settings. "You're not just a patient in this program," he says. "You're an active participant in your own healing." For him, PC-PEP brought structure, community, emotional release, and even laughter in unexpected places. It gave him the tools to not only survive, but to thrive and to help others to do the same, which is very empowering. This episode is for everyone and anyone who has ever felt alone in their diagnosis and needs a reminder healing is possible and connection is always within reach. Welcome, everyone.
So I'm going to start by saying thank you so much for agreeing to do this podcast with me. Kimball, we've known you for a long time. You've done so much for the program, for the people in the program, for us as a lab, and participating in activities with us and supporting us and socializing with us and allowing us to pick your brain and reflect on this journey, the prostate cancer journey. Let's start with that. So thank you. Thank you, Kimball.
Gabriela, it's a pleasure to be here, and I'm very happy that you invited me to come and have a chat with you.
Really, thank you. So let's start with that. This prostate cancer journey, Kimball. What is it? What was it like for you?
It's, I'll just come back a little bit. When I was in my mid-40s, my family doctor had said, we should check your prostate. And I think at the time I didn't even know what he was talking about. So I did a physical exam, got the PS, and he used to do that every year. Mm-hmm. And I moved to Nova Scotia here back in 2013 and was just lining up to get a new family doctor at Halifax. And we were chatting, and he said, "You haven't had and I think at this time I would have been mid-50s, 56, 57. And, he said, "You haven't had a prostate check for a while." And I told him I used to get them done. I said, "Yeah, it's been about 2 years from my processing, coming down here and getting a physician." So anyway, we took didn't think of it. We took the physical exam and took the blood test. And he just said after the physical exam, he said, yeah, there's a little bit of granular uh, to your prostate. And he says, probably nothing. And I didn't think anything of it at the time. He just said not to be worried. And shortly after, I got a call to come in to see him. And my PSA was at 5.7. And he'd indicate, well, we should take another one. And so I think it was probably about a month, 6 weeks later, I had another one that was up to 7 something. And he said, I think I should send you to, or he said, I'm going to send you to see a urologist. We'll get another PSA. And the next one come back, it was close to 11. I had an appointment to see a urologist in Halifax. And we chatted, and I had another PSA done. It was 13. And so I chatted to him, and we arranged to have, he said, we need to have a biopsy done. So I know everybody talks about the biopsy. It's the most fun part of any examination. Not a lot of fun. So I went in, and the staff is up. The doctors and everything. My family doctor and the urologist are really, and their staff were really, really helpful. And you got a feeling that there was a sense of compassion with them, and I really appreciate that. And I can still remember getting the biopsy. It was 12 samples, and they freeze you beforehand. About halfway through, the urologist asked me, "So is this painful?" It was, but I said I didn't know what to expect. And he offered to give me more freezing, but I said, "No, we'll just continue." So he got the 12 samples, and that was just before Christmas. And thought, everything will turn out okay. It's just so early in 2015. Yes, 2015, 2016. 2016, I got called back to see him, and he had 10 of the cores had come back, or the samples had come back with cancer. So that was surprising to me, because I had shown no symptoms whatsoever. Healthy, I was doing everything. But that was a real shocker to me. I remember coming in, I even thinking, it'll be all fine. But that was a real shock. I didn't know what to say. And then I can remember him talking about what the next steps were. But I was completely deaf. I don't know what he said. And all I could think of. So I left there with not knowing exactly, and I think it was my own, he explained it, but I think I was just trying to process everything. And it was just like, I don't understand this. And I'm so surprised. And I didn't really tell my wife, Darlene, I after getting these results, I didn't really tell her. I said, yeah, there's just, I'm supposed to go back for some more tests. And her being in the health profession says, well, that's interesting to go back for more tests. And because I just didn't want to, I was trying to process myself, and she was doing a lot of care for her mom, who was suffering from the nursing home, suffering from cancer and that. And I didn't want to add to that, because I was thinking, this is a lot for her to process. And she's a pretty strong individual and very caring. But anyway, I guess I ended up telling her what, and I said, but I'm not exactly sure what the next steps are. So I had another meeting to follow up and to look at options. I think they were presented to me before, but I think he's just followed up to see what my decision was. And we talked about, and I did some research, I guess, looking at what approach would be. And I hadn't told anybody yet other than Darlene. And I come back into Halifax, and I can remember looking and saying, I decided to go for surgery. And he suggested I should go talk to a radiologist, an oncologist, to have a look at looked like that was an option for me to do the brachytherapy. And in the meantime, I found out, when I guess I had mentioned to my older brother, and he had prostate cancer, unknown to me, a number of years before, and he had taken the brachytherapy and everything was fine. So those are the options, and I said I wouldn't. I left the option to go visit a radiologist. I come back home and said, no, I'm not. I think it's cancer I want to do. That was my reaction. It's cancer. Never looked at the other options. Just thinking I just got to get out of my body.
Yeah, yeah. And
And
a lot of men do that.
yeah,
Exactly. Just get
yeah,
it out. Yeah,
yeah. And so I was going back to see the urologist in Halifax, and a good friend. I don't know how she found out, or I might mention this. So she says, my husband, Gordy, who's a good friend too. He's had a diagnosis also, getting ready, and you should chat to him. And I'd never talked to anybody or as my brother, I guess, and maybe one of my friends that about it's just not something you want to talk about. And so Gordy, it was fabulous because Gordy is uh, he's just your typical guy. But we sat down, we had the coffee, and he just started talking about it, and it was just so natural. And I was thinking like this, and we probably sat for about an hour and a half or so talking, and but it was so comforting because I'd never had that conversation, and hearing one of your peers or one of your friends talk about this, and there's life after it. But what he had done, he had in Nova Scotia at the time, they didn't have the robotic surgery yet. So he's with the RCMP, and they sent him to Montreal to get it. So and he says, "Oh, the surgeon," and I have to mention his name, Kevin Zorn, probably one of the most incredible individuals that I've ever had the opportunity to meet. I would have liked to have met him in different circumstances, but so Gordy had just was having a follow up with him. He said, "I have this friend, so and so," and Kevin says, "Give him my email. Tell him to give me a call." So I sent him an email, and I can remember thinking, "Oh, I'll hear from." And it was a Friday night. I get a phone call,
Wow.
and it's Dr. Kevin Zorn, and we got chatting. He says, "Yeah, I can take you. I just need you to get a referral, and I'll set up a session here to meet you." So I know I'm rambling on here a lot, but anyway, I go back and I said they were planning to do the surgery here, and I talked to the urologist, and I said, "No, I think I want to go get the robotics. Not available." So we chatted about it, and it was like, "No, we're going to work you through the system here." And I said to him, if you were in my position, you had these options.
Mm.
What would you do? And he said, "I guess I'd take the robotic surgery." I said, "So, okay, I just need your referral." And he was reluctant to do that, but I followed up. He said he would, and I followed up, and he did send the referral. I got there. I went to Montreal, met Kevin, and he was able to take me right away. But I had a couple of things I wanted to do. I had a marathon to run in Boston, and my reason, and this would have been March.
Yeah.
And the reason I was doing this marathon, I had a brother that died the previous year from pancreatic cancer, and he loved to walk. And I decided I'll go back to do Boston one more time to honor him for that. So he said that's fine. He said we can delay it to then. He said I can book it right after that. Darlene and I were heading off to Miami for a week after that. So he said I'll get you right after that. And then I said, well, there's another race I'd like to do. And he said, I don't think I want to delay it. It would have been another month and a half. He said, I don't think we want to delay it. I think we should get you in here. And he said, I'll book you right after Boston. It's funny, I come back from my holidays, and I think it was like a Wednesday I come back. Friday I was talking to him. Sunday I was in Montreal. Monday I had the surgery. And the prep work and everything, people were great. I mean, I think that's, and after this, I think Kyle said about his podcast, I think they got me to count down. And the next thing I do is I wake up in the recovery room, and later on he comes in, he says, perfect. He said, this is almost a textbook surgery. He said, I did not have to, no damage to any of the nerve packages. And he told me beforehand when he first met me, you'd have to know I was a very active individual, 6 foot, and I weighed 147 pounds because I did a lot of running. So he said, this will be, you're an ideal candidate for this, and come back and telling me this is, it's a textbook surgery. And I stayed in Montreal for, that was Monday. So I got out of the hospital on the Tuesday. Stayed in Montreal Friday morning. I had the catheter taken out. The biggest relief in my life was getting that catheter out. He wanted me to stay one other day just to make sure I didn't have any issues. So I had a flight out Saturday afternoon. I was back home, and really I had not very little leakage. Sexual function was no issue. So I ended up being very lucky in the situation. But the other thing he did was the first time he met me, he wanted me to do 200 Kegels a day. And I used to laugh at this because they were just straight Kegels. I don't know if I did them right. He started explaining them to me, gave me some literature on it. But anyway, so that 4 days of the catheter in, I was home, and I think the day I had the catheter, we walked a few kilometers, and he said probably that was a little bit much. But anyway, worked up gradually, and he allowed me to get out about a month. I think he said I could start doing. I've been walking quite a bit, and he got me back running. But I really wanted to get back cycling, and he said no, not yet. But about 6 weeks out, he let me start cycling. So go forward a couple of years, everything's going fine. I'm very fit. I'm doing, I'm a guy that would probably work out. I always did a couple of workouts a day. When I was working, I was still doing triathlons and doing marathons and doing a lot of stuff. So I would, probably fitness wise, I'd be spending 20 to 30 hours a week on a couple workouts a day. And then the weekends, it was just all day long sort of thing. So I retired and moved to Nova Scotia. I was still doing all that activity. And I've been monitored by a great doctor in Halifax, Ross Mason.
Yeah.
And really caring guy. And at that time, they were starting to, he had come here to do the robotics, and we had chatted. And anyway, the first couple of years, there's no issue whatsoever. And then I got a PSA done. I think he was taking them every 6 months. And I had a meeting. He just wanted to have a chat with me, and told me there was a slight indication of the PSA. And he said, we just want to get another sample and get another just to make sure. So anyway, it didn't. The next one, it was a little bit higher. So they continued on, and he was telling me about what they'll actively monitor, and they started looking at doubling times.
Yeah.
So it got to the point where he's after about 3 or 4 samples, he said, "Yeah, this is the doubling time means we need to do something." And I was really floored at that, because I just go like, this can't be true. I read some stuff, and I talked about, as again, it's dangerous when you start reading stuff, because you can't you process it one way. But anyway, there's cases where people's PSA.
And you have no perspective. You have no perspective to put things in context.
That is true. That is true. So I kept trying to convince myself, no, the PSA is just going to go and level off. And he'll just keep monitoring. He says, so he wanted me to go see a radiologist. And I said, let's get another sample and see what it does. So he did, and it's same story. And he says, Ross said, you really need to go, basically. So I said, okay. I went to see a radiologist, and we chatted. And
a radiation oncologist.
Yes.
Yeah.
We chatted. And I come back to Ross. I said, you know what? I'm just going to let this play out. Because I said, I was funny how you read stuff and you hear all the side effects. You don't realize that there's a 1% chance. All you see is this, and you think all these things can go wrong. So I decided, no, I'm just going to let it play out and not do anything about it. So he set an appointment for me. He says, we'll get some more samples. And I remember going into him, and he just said to me, you're a young guy. And he was pretty frank. And I never thanked him. And I think the other night watching the show, I said, I've never thanked him for having this. And he says, there's a guy I want you to see. And that ended up being Dr. Rutledge. And he said, there's a program. He said, I think you'd benefit from. And I don't remember if he just gave me the information on it or he had a pamphlet, but he says, I
Yeah,
want
yeah.
you to see him.
Mm.
And it was funny because he told me this new program and there's some benefits to it. And it's interesting because there was an article in the Chronicle Herald on your program shortly after that. And I had a friend who was a counselor dealing with things. And I talked to her. I said, this program, I said, because I think I didn't mention, I went into a really depression with this. I didn't want to talk to anybody about it. And I remember giving one of my friends a call one day. I was out, guy bike a lot, and he hadn't seen me around for a while. And I told him, I said, Bill, I've got this, and I don't know what to do. So it was kind of interesting because he just listened, and that
Mm.
was the whole thing. He said, let's get together for a coffee and have a chat again. And anyway, but my friend Miriam, she goes, "Oh, this is a great program. Why wouldn't you go and participate in something like this?" And her comment was, "You can't just let this go because." So I met Rob, and it was interesting because I get in to see Rob,
Uh-huh.
and it was really right off the bat we chatted, but there was a sense of caring there, and it's just like we hit it. Is just and remember him telling me, he says, "You're the guys we want in this program." And we are interested, and then I think we were there. We had chat, and I was a nurse, and then I think I ended up meeting you later in the day. And remember, Darlene and I talked about. I said, I hope I get into this program.
Right, because
And
it was a randomized clinical trial. So you
yes,
could have gotten it or not.
yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
So I was there saying, like,
Oh,
man,
wow.
because now all of a sudden my mind had changed. Like, this is the right thing to do. And then we go and we do some um, evaluations at the
Yeah,
Dalhousie.
yeah, yeah.
And we go there, and I think there was a Dave guy and Ross. Remember
Yes,
me and
Ross was
Ross?
there.
Yes, Ross was there, and he was again. Uh, I was going through the testing, and him and Darlene, like he was just a very I don't know. Ross has got this incredible. You see him in the people, but he just was so. You can talk to me. So easy to talk to.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I remember Darlene leaving and saying, "What a special person Ross is." He said, "Because I was doing the testing, he was there, and they were chatting." And she's, just so it was all very positive. And then I get accepted into the program, and then we start talking about the radiation. And I was taking so this is at the end of 2019.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So I'd been about a little over a year that I'd been diagnosed with the reoccurrence. So we were off going to South America for a month or 3 weeks, I guess. So Rob was really good. I remember getting my tattoos, and actually I got them done the day we were heading to the airport. And I come back um, in February, first part of February, and started my radiation treatments. I had 33 treatments over a 7-week period.
And this,
Um,
by then you would have been in the program, which is lovely, because by then
yeah,
you would have had some prehabilitation, meaning you would have already started the program and those health promotion tips and
yeah,
exercise, and this and that.
yes, yes,
Interesting.
yeah.
Which
So
is the perfect way to do it. The perfect
yeah,
way.
and two things come out of that. You talk about the program. I remember Darlene and I, the morning videos.
Yeah.
Waiting for them to come in, and it would be like there'd be the odd morning they might be a little late. And saying they're usually here when we get up, because that's the first thing we did in the morning. Get up, it'd be around 6 o'clock. The videos would be there from the previous night, and we get up and watch them. It's just like we're living with Rob and Gabrielle and all this information, and then the exercises and. Uh, and then the weights also the strength training. Well, Darlene does a lot of strength training anyway, so it was funny because we did those all together, and we would do. I think the best part of the program was that uh, me being an engineer and always having the project work, and that the record keeping kept you on track. And I remember doing that, I said, "There's no way I'm not going to have one of these ticked off every day of the week." So I think I don't think I know I didn't miss a session, and probably most cases did more. Also, when we get started, I get hooked up with a fabulous guy as a buddy,
Uh-huh.
and got to meet him and his wife, and those weekly calls. And I can particularly remember one. This is the one that made me think I'm giving something back. And it changed my approach to say, I've had so many great things. I mean, the medical system was so reactive to treating me. And I felt really everybody, the staff, I mean, the radiology department, the techs and that were just so great. But Rob had, during it, he had surgery. And I remember before the surgery, he said, "Kimball, would you mind coming in and seeing me the day after surgery?" And I
Wow.
think he had his surgery on Monday or Tuesday. And I said, "Yeah." Or it might have been Monday, and Tuesday wasn't the day that normally we would have chatted.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And so going in and talking to Rob, and it was just like everything had gone well, and he was in good spirits. And so, I spent about a half hour with him, and his wife came, and Carol, we chatted. And anyway, so about everything was going great. And probably about 3-4 weeks out from surgery, one day he called me. He says, "Oh, I wish I'd never had the surgery." And he said, "I can't get up. I'm leaking." He said, "I can't go to the grocery store. I'm leaking." He said, "I didn't have this problem before." And he said, "After the surgery, it was," but all of a sudden, he says, "I go to the grocery store. I sit in the car because I can't get up because I'll be leaking." And he was really down. And we chatted for quite a while. And then later that evening, I get an email from him thanking me. He says, "That was the best conversation I've had." And his hope, because I was really concerned, you can get yourself in that dark area. And yeah, so that made me, I mean, to me, that was like one of those gifts, it's just like you get something out of it. And it's probably the first time that I'd given something back to the health system. And, but it made me feel really good. And I said, I just want to keep involved. And him and I had a great relationship during the program. We still do keep touch, but seldom. But I really appreciate that. That's one of the parts of the program that I think is have the ability to have somebody you can talk to in some of our conversations, just going over, hey, the program, how you doing with this? We used to always talk about the meditation piece.
Yeah.
Bob initially was sort of skeptical about it, but he'd go do it at the highest level and get green the whole way, and I'd be struggling, and I'd say he'd do his 15 minutes, and I'd be doing 3 times a day, and but it was just good, and just trying to pick each other's brains and just having some good conversations that helped me open up a little bit to talk about it. So I think I look at that and say that is a big part of the program. The other thing when I think about uh, uh, the gift, when I first started my radiation treatments, and probably about this, yeah, it was probably the end of the first week, and you'd meet people there, and there was this lady that would come in, and she was in a stretcher. They'd bring her in. A lot of times her husband would come with her, or maybe her daughter. And I remember sitting there, and she comes over, and she's a very upbeat person, but you could tell, she's in a lot tougher situation than I am. And I remember she come over the first day, and I was sitting there, and she just said something to me, and I said, "Oh, I'm just starting radiation." She remember her just touching my arm and says, "It'll be all fine," you know. And for the next probably a couple of weeks, I would run into her probably 3-4 times a week during and then
Wow.
one week she wasn't there. Second day she wasn't there, and she had passed away on the weekend. And her daughter come in to thank the staff and I was sitting there, and she come over to me and says, "You were so good to my mom." And she said, "You would always have." I said, "No." I said, "It was your mom." I said, you could tell she was in a situation that was worse than mine, but she always would say, "It'll be fine. It'll be good." And I said, no, I said, a few of us here would have seen her and just said, she struggles, but she still got that smile. She still got the talk to people, and it was just like things will be fine. And I think about her quite a bit. I wish I had gotten her name, but it's funny how you go through this. Sometimes you just you chat, you don't. Yeah, but that left. I think a really. There are so many strong, incredible people that I've met on this journey, and it just humbles you in a sense because I felt sorry for myself initially. That's a big part. I felt I remember going into that depression thing, and especially when I was making the decision, I don't think about just letting it go because I don't think I was in a good mindset to because I just and people don't realize that. I think that's the big part of our program is that you talk about that, and I value that because I think I was in a situation where left on my own, it would have been somewhat different, I think. And I, yeah, so I get a lot to thank people for.
Or yeah,
Yeah.
it's interesting. You said so many things. The emphasis on recognizing yourself in others and the goodness and the healing that brings with it, and also the focus on permanence. You talk about this lady, she's at the end of her life, and there's still that goodness and that connection. She connects to the last moment of her breath. She connects, she recognizes herself in others, and she focuses on the permanence. Not the things that change naturally as we grow older. I mean, look, we get wrinkles, we decrepit, eventually we die. That's impermanence for you. But there is a sense of permanence. And I think, like during the documentary, you talk about this idea of connection and love, that all you need is that connection, but that true, authentic, not phony connection, not the perception of connection. Oh, look,
Yeah.
she cares about him, or look, he cares about her. That not the perception of how it makes you look,
Yeah.
whether you meet a certain standard, but I'm talking about the authentic experience of connection, the authentic really desire within to see yourself in others, to see others' interests as your own. And you can, I think, only do that when you through another. You don't
Yeah.
do it alone.
Yeah. 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 That's probably a good way of putting it because that individual probably had like you say, the permanence because it's had a such an impact to me. To someone that's just a total stranger, and they're like they weren't thinking about themselves, but they were just saying, "Yeah, you just started; it'll be fine." And yeah, I thought that was a very touching moment. And if one thing, and I'll just say, continue on with that, is that what I found is that from that too is that I become a much better listener. I think it's the program as a whole. I'm a guy that would be always looking for a solution, provide a solution, and I remember Darlene used to say to me, she said, you know, we don't necessarily need a solution. I just need you to listen for a while. And and going through the program,
Oh.
I'll give you the best. I'll give you the best comment that anybody's ever said to me. And Darlene said to me after being in this for probably 4 months or so, just how things go. She's Kimball, you've evolved. And so I said, "Holy shoot!" I said, "Maybe it does." I said because I know I'm much more. I find I'm a little bit more caring, and I said I've always been the person that's been driven by results. So maybe I would be bypass that because I needed something done, And and the other thing is you start appreciating. One thing the program does. And I'll come back to the program because. The part about there was some really tough. The toughest part that I found was the Tuesday call or the Sunday call, and it started out with your family members, relative,
Right.
which
Or
is pretty
someone at a
easy.
distance.
And then
Yeah.
it was like really put you out there and said, contact someone you haven't contacted in a while. And what happened, I think I've mentioned this to you before, but what had happened is I started contacting people that I used to, work with, retired, and all of a sudden these friendships develop and reinitiate. I shouldn't say, but there's uh, the call every so often, just out of the blue, and they continue. And then what I did is I touched base with some of my old high school classmates, which is kind of interesting, just see how they were doing. And through a really good, probably Kevin's my oldest friend, I guess we know each other since we were
Yeah,
about
Kevin, yeah.
3. And he had gone through prostate cancer also at a very young age. And so we got chatting, it just happened to come out of something. But anyway, but other people you haven't seen for in 40 years. And now there's a group of us get together a couple times a year, that just doesn't, and it was really interesting to see, um, it's great that everybody's doing well, and it's something that I think is the relationships and value. I think I value people more. It's not just myself anymore. So, which is sometimes hard to accept because you start realizing that you can be pretty, or I think I was just too driven to have time for people. It's the work. Everything was sort of work related or as competition, and so that the whole thing about you start realizing what's important,
Mhm.
and that puts things in perspective because you think, you know what, this could turn out a lot worse than what it did. And the other thing, in the past couple of months here, I've had 4 of my friends been diagnosed, and it's interesting because they all reached out beforehand and would chat it and even following and um, one individual who had some struggles after the surgery and spent a lot of time. I remember his wife getting a hold of him and saying, "Get Kimball over here to talk." And we get in the house and she left. She said, "I'm going to be gone for a while." And then so it was quite interesting because my friend was they had to when they took his prostate out, they really took the nerve bundles also. So he was really suffering a little, just the whole what's life going to be like, and then he had other issues, but he's progressing along, and you definitely see that his spirits are much better. When you talk to him and that, but it was uh, pretty tough, the
Mhm.
initial go. And so I think it was comforting for him also to have someone to talk to that goes. And yeah, so there's everybody goes through these challenges to it. And I feel that my challenges have been probably a lot less than people. It's been more, like I said, the mental part of it. The physical part, I think one thing I found going through radiation, people all talk about getting tired, but having the program and making sure I did something every day. And I
Mhm.
was waiting for this tiredness to come, and it never, went through it. It's like, oh man, I must be very fortunate because everybody be talking about, oh, you get to the second, third week, you'll start getting, and um, so I fared out. I always say the medical staff has been very nice to me because I really haven't had any
Mhm.
serious issues. Other than I guess through the radiation is quite common. You'll sometimes get a couple of years after that. I guess about a year and a half. I end up having some bladder issues where a lot of bleeding at times just because of the bladder. You get a little burnt, but I mean it's an inconvenience, but there's no real issue with it. So yeah, I've been pretty fortunate.
Mhm. Kimball, tell me something. Do you think that because you do live in a rural area, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Do you think that living in a rural area perhaps predisposes men to be even more isolated or feel isolated during a prostate cancer diagnosis and then follow up?
Well, but my thought, and I thought about that when I was going through this. I'm retired,
Mm-hmm.
and my friends were all runners, cyclists, and having moved here and not having real close friendships, that did make me not want to. But I think you're right, a little bit isolated, and guys are. It's a little. I didn't realize this, but I think I've seen it myself. We're reluctant to even chat about it. In some cases, I mean, I was fortunate that my family doctor in Calgary said, "I think we should do this, do it on a yearly basis, and at a very young age." And that probably. And at the time, we became friends, and I said, "If your suggestion I do this, I know you're making the right decisions for me." So, but yeah, you talk to some people, it's when I'm a lot more vocal now. When I tell people, I remember my nephews, and I've all told them, they're, you should definitely, getting to your 40s, you should be following through. And friends, I'll ask, just saying, I have I had a tendency initially of like, oh, I don't want to, but you know what? You care about people, you just tell them. And a lot of people will say, oh, I don't want to go through that physical examination. I said, well, it's just a blood test if you really, you should have the physical examination, but it's a blood test that's going to be first. I said, that's pretty easy to get done. But yeah, there's some of my friends even today that my age won't get it checked, and a lot of times they say, oh, that's an old, like, it's funny, I don't know where we're talking about that. It's an old man's disease. Yeah, it can't kill you. Yeah, you'll, and you start
Such a misconception.
yeah, yeah. And one thing that the monthly sessions, and I really enjoy, we have even
Tell
the
me a little bit about that.
pre
Yeah, because
yeah,
actually you were part of that. You were part of that decision.
yeah.
Some of the
So,
patients said, that they wanted to meet before the monthly video
yeah,
conference. So we
yeah,
started those sessions, and then we expanded for Black men, for Indigenous,
yeah,
for uh,
yeah. And it's
rural
very
LGBTQ.
yeah.
Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, so what I find is that it's amazing how people stand. Like someone will bring in, they've had an issue, and someone else will uh, chat about, hey, if you want to talk outside this, here's my contact. And people will. It's like a community, and
Yeah.
I remember not thinking about it. There was when we first started them, and I remember I think it's okay to say John Demings
Oh,
sent me a
absolutely.
note saying.
He's part of our team.
Yeah, and he just said, "No, is there an opportunity to break these groups out into?"
Oh, is that right? So it
Yeah,
was
so that's what
John
we
that
start.
said that.
Yeah, yeah, and I
Jeez.
think I didn't even think of it, but
I'm
it's
joking.
actually yeah, it was actually um,
Yes.
what I think it provides a more comfortable space for people,
Oh, yeah.
and that is one of the most important things. Because I remember. Um, um,
Describe it a bit for us, for the listeners, because some of the people don't know what we're talking about. So
yeah,
we have monthly video conferences, and then what
yeah.
happens to you guys? And
Oh,
who's running it? I think that's just
yeah.
incredible. It's
Yeah.
exceptional. Yeah.
Yeah. So we have an informal session that starts off, and people who are new to the program get introduced. We ask them about their story, and then people will start offering um, uh, stories themselves, or reaching out there and saying, "Hey, I've had a similar situation. If you need to talk to somebody." So it's really informal, but it comes to points that, and the other part that we get sometimes partners join.
Yeah.
And that is last week or last month. I remember we were broke into our small groups because as part of it, we have these preliminary groups that we talk about stuff. Rob usually comes in at the end because we may have some medical questions, and it's great because he has an opportunity to address those. Then we have the main information center, which session, which we allow ourselves a little bit of time at the front to address some items that may have come out of the pre-groups that may be of interest to the whole group. And I think interesting, and the question last month was, what is the program meant? And one of the actually, there's two people in my group, the breakout group, where their partners were there, and listen to what they say about the information, the support, and what it's meant to them. So I think that it's not just the individual, but it can be their partner or family members. They get, and I think we have a spousal or partner section also that people sit in. But I like it when they sit in on our section because they can give a different perspective. I think Mike and Barb from Bridgewater,
Yeah.
that was an example of just, I think Barb talked about it. And it was just like, and I think when I come back to the main group, I said, Barb, you've got to talk about this to the main group. And she did a great job.
Yeah,
So,
she's phenomenal. Yeah.
yeah. So there's, I know we're talking about our area. We'd like to expand that out to have a local group that we may meet just somewheres. We're just trying to, I'm working with Marcel, or I don't know if Marcel knows that yet or not, but I'm going to be talking to Marcel about that. And that's the other thing. It's quite interesting when you get people like we had a couple of sections. We had an individual from Africa, part of it.
Yeah.
We did, the Zealanders and New
That's a great-
Zealanders. Yeah. And I think about the individuals from, different provinces. There's a guy that, at least one guy that joins us in our pre-session from Newfoundland, and he talks about how that program has impacted him. And even if people from BC, you get people from Ontario, and there's one individual I have to mention to come in he's from Ontario, Victor, and I always tell him, I said, Victor, I like having you here because you're always smiling. No matter if you're asking a question, you go and you're always got a smile and a happy, and it's just it rubs off, and I just love when I see people that just it's everybody participates, and that's a big thing, and no one for it. Like if you don't feel like you want to talk, then that's fine. You don't have to tell your story. Just join in, and when you feel comfortable, share it, or yeah. So it's
Yeah, and I love the continuity from the pre-sessions to the monthly video conference, the actual session, and how whoever needs to stay, Rob and I are always the last ones to leave.
yes,
That gives people an opportunity to connect more deeply with us and ask questions and be vulnerable. And so it's full circle, really. It's every one of you, especially those of you that have finished the program 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 5 years ago. The fact that you're still around and still supporting one another and still wanting to be part of this community tells us unequivocally that nothing short of wonderful.
yeah,
Here. Nothing.
I find that I think I'm giving some, but every session I get something out of it. Either it's informational, conversations. I hear someone make a statement or to hear about them, and I in some cases it's selfish just on my own part because I say I'm getting so much out of it, and I definitely want to. And I think about the top of getting out. The other thing I got to mention is diet, and that's one thing that
yes,
and I before the program I ate very healthy anyway. It was mainly plant-based, but I improved a lot of things. I used to have a real love for chocolate, and that doesn't exist anymore. And but I used to love when we'd have new recipes. Especially, and Darlene and she was so supportive. I think it was a big part. So she decided that she would follow a vegan diet or mainly plant-based diet. And there's I started cooking when I retired a little bit, loved it, but I tell you, there's something about sitting at the island here, cutting up stuff and planning the meal, and it's actually kind of there's intimacy involved in that, and you can do it, and for us it was kind of like, okay, here's the time we put together to do this, and we'll have a few laughs or something like this. But sometimes also, it's just yeah. So I think that was a part of it too. Is that the food part, and it's just more, like I said, food intimacy. I remember we do the weekly reports, and I say you put that part, and I say, I'm not the most compassionate guy maybe at times, but I said that would be something. I said there's something that sits with me that I really valued. Yeah. And it's
I think there's a lot of value in being aware of things that we can do to feel more connected, to feel more fulfilled. Absolutely. Food intimacy is a way of it, right? It's one way of connecting with the other. When you stay and think about it, when we travel to other countries, we love sharing, breaking bread with others, eating together, having a laugh, at ourselves, at life.
Yeah, yeah.
Life is a comedy in many ways.
Yeah, and it's something that's interesting too because with the guys in prostate journeys, it's funny what you would make a joke and what you laugh about, and sometimes you give the like I know my friend who was just coming home from the hospital with his catheter, and I. Myself and my friend Gordy, we both said the same thing to him. And I said to his partner, I said, Nancy, make sure you hit every bump in the road. But it's just, but you can joke about things, and I think that's, chat to you won't make that joke with somebody else, but with your peers in the group, and it definitely is a little community sort of thing.
Anything that you might want to say to someone that just gets a prostate cancer diagnosis, whether they're from here, from Nova Scotia, from Canada, whether they're from New Zealand, whether they're from South Africa, Belgium, Romania, they're all sites to the program. What do you have to say?
Well, I think biggest thing is look at the options
Mhm.
and know there's various treatments. Make sure you get good information. The program itself, I would highly recommend because it covers all facets of things you're going to face. And I tell people, I say, you get in the program and people say, I don't want to give up meat or something like this. You say, they're not asking you to do that. You may change your diet. This has got to work for you. The program, I haven't got time for it. Well, you know what? I'm sure that Rob would rather have you doing it 60% of the time than not attempting. So what part you're doing is what you can do. So if you're not able to do it all, do your best. And I think what it comes out of the program, there's definitely a community that comes with it. And I am sure that I could go with many of the individuals that are in the program that I could give them a call and say, here I'm going through this. Can you give me a hand, or something like that? That's the part that people just step up and are not afraid of sharing, and with that, of giving you a pickup, if that's the right word, because they can. And I think about Bob when he had that real terrible day, and I wasn't intending. I was hoping it was comforting, but I never expected it had that big of an impact on him. And I'm thinking, like, man, that may. So there's so much, and the support, and you made a good point. Like I remember with the monthly conference calls, I had an issue one time. I didn't want to talk to it in the group, and I remember waiting at the end with Rob just to chat about it. And I thought that you guys do. Yeah, I mean, you never cut us short. It's and I always feel I've been able to email yourself or Rob, and you always get back to me very quickly, and it's just amazing that you have time, and I know your schedules. And I used to say, yeah, they'll get back a couple of days, and it'd be no later that night. They're probably going through their personal emails when they're finished their job. So it's remarkable. And I think, and I think also what I see as you and Rob as examples, you've developed what is important to you guys, and you get like people always say, oh, give me life balance. Well, you know what? That's your responsibility. And I think with you and Rob, we see that the just you guys sitting in your house there with food around, or
Totally. And eating sometimes and talking to you guys, and
Yeah.
nobody ever judges because they know those guys worked all day.
Yeah.
Now they're having more work at the end and of course they're hungry and they're having a little bite to eat here. And just the love is over. It's pouring. I think I have somebody that wants to see you. Give me a second.
Okay. Yeah.
Danielle is here. I know, he just wants to say hello. So I have to interrupt the podcast because somebody wants
Oh.
to hear. Hello, Joy. Say hello to Kimball. He's been meowing for the past 2 minutes. He says, pay attention to me, Mama. Attention. Pay attention. Say hello to Kimball. Kimball knows you.
Oh, yeah,
You're a
I've met
person.
you. I've met you a couple of times.
Yes, exactly. And in person too.
Yeah. So I think I've had the pleasure of having a couple of meals at your guys'
I
place.
know. Thank
And Darlene has been there, and I
you.
still remember one day Rob and I went for a cycle ride,
Yes, I
and
remember that.
come back, and you had this incredible salad and hooked up. I wasn't expecting that. It was just like come in and it's like
Oh,
it's just like good old Maritimers.
yeah, good old Maritimers. And that's just the beauty of being here. I have never been happier, Kimball.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
love the Maritimes. I love them.
I never thought I would.
I'm so
We
grateful.
moved away, went to Calgary, and we worked overseas, and I wasn't intending to come back to Maritimes, but Darlene, we just said we bought a house here for back in 2011, and it was going to be sort of a temporary because she was spending a lot of time with her mom here. And this best decision I've ever made. People, I think I had a fairly high stress job, and I get back here and I said the quiet, the sincerity of the people is the it doesn't matter if I think about just in everyday life the sincerity of people that have a time to say hello to you, and so
Salt of
has
the
been
earth, people.
yeah.
Salt of the earth, truly.
Yeah, it's the best decision I did was to come back here.
Oh,
And I keep telling people, and I said when I first got here, I said it's gonna be too quiet. I like going out to coffee shops in the evening, and Mahone Bay shuts down at 5 o'clock, so I got no one to go to a coffee shop with.
exactly.
So yeah, but it's the life you live here has been pretty enriched. Or I think it's just yeah, and there's always someone that's willing to give you a hand with something.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And that goes to you as well. I mean, honest to goodness, I think part of this program growing so big now and expanding is that we feel so supportive. We don't feel alone. We feel we have a whole tribe, and you are
Yeah.
part of the tribe. And so are
Yeah.
all the mentors and all the buddies and all the people in the program.
Yeah.
Nobody's left behind. And truly, this is a tribe that now expands from Nova Scotia to throughout Canada, to New Zealand, to South Africa, to Romania, to Belgium, now to Australia. It's
Yeah.
wonderful to see. Yeah,
I know.
You
Yeah.
can build a community like that.
Yeah.
Just who would have thought, Kimball?
And
Because
when
I
I think
didn't.
about this, it's for any people with a chronic disease or
and
this
now
whole
we expand.
program is just expanded. I don't know why it's not just
Chronic disease, cancer, all forms of cancer.
yeah. And you makes you feel you're not alone. And the other part is you've got some decision.
Mhm.
You can help your outcomes.
Mm.
And that's what I look. I say, you're just not. You're an active participant, just not a receiver.
Okay.
Because yeah. And someone told me when I get this, they said, "Why wouldn't you want to put stack the cards in your favor?" And about this program, and I said, "Exactly, because I mean, you try to do so many things." But I said, "Yeah, that is stacking the cards in your favor. Take part in, and it's free." So.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Campbell, thank you so much for spending this time with me. I really appreciate it. I hope that folks listening to it may take a gem of wisdom, a gem of support and help as they go through their journey. So thank you for doing this.
I really appreciate that, and you're right. I hope the journey, you're not alone with this one, and at times it may seem that way, but it's very important to be able to contact people, and this program definitely does it for me. It'll do it for you also. Yeah. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye.
See you. Bye.
And this concludes episode number 7 of our Prostate Cancer Patient Empowerment Program podcast. For more information about how to sign up for free on our program, please visit PC-PEP.org. For any other form of cancer, please visit cancerpep.com. Thank you so much for listening. Until next time, be well and take care of yourselves.